Hall.
Madam Clerk, go ahead and I guess repeat it so we make sure we got it right.
Oh, okay. For persons that are on the WebEx as well, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, just to be on the safe side, go ahead and do that.
Thank you. That was a vote for Councilman Hall. Suara.
Mendez.
Mendez. Hall. Toombs. Mendez. Bull.
Mendez.
Mendez. Swope.
Sledge.
Sledge. Parker.
Mendez.
Mendez. Withers.
Sledge.
Sledge. Benedict.
Mendez.
Mendez. Van Rees.
Mendez.
Mendez. Hancock.
Mendez.
Mendez. Young.
Mendez.
Mendez. Hager.
Mendez.
Mendez. Evans.
Mendez.
Mendez. Bradford. Mendez. Broughton. Syracuse. Mendez. Welsh.
Mendez.
Mendez. Sledge.
Sledge.
Sledge. Cash.
Mendez.
Mendez. O'Connell.
Mendez.
Mendez. Roberts.
Mendez.
Mendez. Taylor.
Mendez.
Mendez. Hauser.
Mendez.
Mendez. Druffel.
Mendez.
Mendez. Murphy.
Mendez.
Mendez. Pulley.
Sledge.
Sledge. Johnston.
Mendez.
Mendez. Nash.
Mendez.
Mendez. Vercher.
Sledge.
Sledge. Porterfield.
Mendez.
Mendez. Sepulveda. I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Mendez.
Mendez. Rutherford.
Mendez.
Mendez. Stiles.
Mendez.
Mendez. Lee.
Sledge.
Sledge. Henderson.
Sledge.
Sledge. Rosenberg.
Mendez.
Mendez.
All right. So thank you, members of the council. So the vote is 29 votes for Councilmember Mendez, 8 votes for Councilmember Sledge, and 1 vote for Councilmember Hall. Congratulations, Councilmember Mendez. You are a pro tem. Welcome aboard. I will also announce that you just gave Councilmember Mendez a birthday present. Today is his birthday, so happy birthday. Some people might consider that not a gift, but anyway. All right, so we will now move to the remaining matters on elections and confirmations. Councilmember Johnston, is there a report from the Rules Committee?
Thank you. We do have a report. We had a number of appointments for Action Commission. We reviewed the appointment of Ms. Fatima Ali for a term expiring February 2nd, 2023, and an appointment of Mr. Kevin Warner for a term expiring March 6th, 2022. We voted 10 in favor, 0 against, and I would move for their confirmations.
Okay, so you've heard the motion, properly seconded. We have Ms. Fatima Ali and Mr. Kevin Warner for the Action Commission. Oh, hold on just a moment.
think it was just one meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
So Councilmember Johnston, we're going back to make sure on the Action Commission, did y'all take a affirmative vote or was it a deferral for one meeting?
It was for the Action Commission. I'm sorry, that's correct. We voted to defer one meeting for both of those. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. All right, so the motion is actually to defer one meeting, properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral? Let me double check. Councilmember Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just wanted to check the reason for the deferral.
So, Councilmember Johnston, can you answer that? If you can't, that's fine, but I'll go to the chair first.
It wasn't. I think it was just a unanimous deferral motion. Probably Director Cooper could answer that.
Mr. Cooper?
I believe that Councilman Sledge made the motion to defer for one meeting to allow more time to consider the appointees in light of everything that's going on with MAC and the expenditure of federal funds, the grants that they're getting due to COVID. Councilman Sledge may be better able to address the reasoning.
Councilmember Sledge?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Cooper explained it well. Yeah, we've got so much going on regarding CARES Act funding, kind of where things are going and who they're going to, that I suggested to the committee that we give ourselves a little bit more time to consider those appointments and their responsibilities, and the committee agreed.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilmember Suara? Okay. All right, so the motion.
Thank you.
No further questions? All right. So the motion is to defer one meeting. Again, it was properly seconded. Looking to make sure there's nobody else in the queue. Seeing none, we're on the motion to defer one meeting on both those appointments. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions for any reason? Okay, motion to defer passes 38 to 0 to 0. All right, we're now on the Auditorium Commission. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. We discussed the reappointment of Mr. John Landers for a term expiring June 30th, 2023, and we voted 10 in favor, 0 against for a one meeting deferral. So I'd move for that one meeting deferral.
Just on Mr. Landers?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Just on Mr. Landers.
Okay, so Mr. Landers, one meeting deferral. That's the motion, properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? Vote is 38 to 0 to 0. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. We also discussed the reappointment of Ms. Perry DeGard Owens for a term expiring June 30th, 2023, and we voted 10 in favor, 0 against, and I would move for her approval.
Okay, so the approval, it's a motion to approve Ms. Perry DeGard Owens for a term expiring June 30th, 2023 for the Auditorium Commission, properly seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor say aye.
For both of their confirmation.
All right, Councilmember Johnston has moved for approval on Mr. Austin Brown and Ms. Seema Prasad. Properly seconded. Any discussion on those on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? 38 to 0 to 0. The motion passes for Mr. Austin Brown and Ms. Seema Prasad. Employee Benefits Board, reappointment of Mr. G. Thomas Curtis. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. For a term expiring June 30th, 2023, we voted 10 in favor, 0 against, and I would move for his approval.
All right, so the motion is to approve, properly seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Hearing none, vote is 38-0 for the reappointment of Mr. G. Thomas Curtis for the Employee Benefit Board. Historical Commission, Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. We reviewed the appointment of Ms. Pamela Bobo for a term expiring August 10th, 2021 to fill the unexpired term of Mr. Bob Allen, and Ms. Jennifer Amundson for a term expiring June 10th, 2022 to fill the unexpired term of Ms. Michelle Hall. We voted for both of them 10 in favor, 0 against, and I would move for their confirmation.
All right, so you've heard the motion to approve, properly seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Okay. Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? Vote is 38-0 for Ms. Pamela Bobo and Ms. Jennifer Amundson for the Historical Commission. And the last group, Tourism and Convention Commission, Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. We discussed three of them. I will move for approval, which is the appointment of Ms. Neely Glenn for a term expiring June 30th, 2023, the reappointment of Mr. Mark Hayes for a term expiring June 30th, 2023, and the reappointment of Mr. Howard Cattell for a term expiring June 30th, 2023. I move for their approval.
Okay. What was the vote on those? It was 10-0?
10 in favor, 0 against. I'm
All
sorry.
right. So I've got a motion for the appointment of Ms. Neely Glenn, reappointment of Mr. Mark Hayes, and reappointment of Mr. Howard Cattell for the Tourism and Convention Commission. That's a proper motion, proper second. Any discussion on that? Seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Anybody need to abstain? Vote is 38-0 for those three approvals, and we've got Ms. Shannon Sanders. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Yes, her term is expiring June 30th, 2023, and we voted 10 in favor, 0 against for a 1-meeting deferral. So I'd move for that 1-meeting deferral, please.
All right, so you've heard the Councilmember Johnston's motion. It's a 1-meeting deferral, properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral? Seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor of the deferral, 1 meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. All right. The motion to defer Ms. Shannon Sanders on the Tourism and Convention Commission, that is passed 38-0, a 1-meeting deferral. So I think that takes care of the report from the Rules, Elections, and Confirmations Committee. So on behalf of the entire Metro Council, we thank those who were approved, appointed, or reappointed tonight. Thank you for your willingness to serve and to volunteer your time and expertise to help Nashville and Davidson County. Councilmember Johnston, Rules Committee, thank you for your time. All right, we are now ready for resolutions on public hearing. Here's how that works in a virtual meeting. So I'm going to call up the resolutions one at a time. I believe we have 5 of them. Call up the resolutions one at a time. Ask the sponsor whether she or he plans to have a public hearing on the resolution tonight. If yes, I will then announce that the resolution is ready for a live call-in. When I announce the item, please make the call. The phone number should be on the screen, but it's 629-255-1931. 629-255-1931. Wait for operator assistance. You'll be asked if you're calling on the current matter. Mute your TV or live stream when it's your turn to speak. And once your time begins, state your name, address, and whether you're for or against the resolution. You'll have 2 minutes in which to speak. Again, the number to call is 629-255-1931. Again, when I start this, I will read the resolution. I'll just ask the sponsor if they want to have a public hearing. Then I'll read the resolution, usually twice, and then go ahead and make that phone call when I start reading. Again, turn off your or mute your television or live stream. And once your time begins, remember, state your name, address, whether you're for or against the resolution. You'll have 2 minutes in which to speak. So we are ready for the first resolution. It is RS 2020-519 by Councilmember Welsh. Councilmember Welsh, you're going to have a public hearing on this matter tonight?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, I am.
All right, so it's Resolution RS 2020-519. If you're interested in that, go ahead and make that phone call. So Councilmember Welsh, I'm going to read it and then I'll get a committee report on it. Resolution exempting Peachtree Drive-In located at 329 Peachtree Street from the minimum distance requirement for obtaining a beer permit pursuant to Section 7.08.090E of the Metropolitan Code. Again, this is Resolution RS 2020-519 by Councilmember Welsh. Resolution exempting Peachtree Drive-In located at 329 Peachtree Street from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit pursuant to Section 7.08.090E of the Metropolitan Code. Councilmember Welsh, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to open call for committee reports, please.
Yeah, I've got Public Safety. Councilmember Gamble, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Resolution RS 2020-519, the committee, Public Safety, Beer, and Regulated Beverages Committee voted on a motion for approval, 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right. Councilmember Welsh, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to open the public hearing.
All right. Thank you. On the next matter. Okay. So I declare the public hearing open on Resolution RS 2020-519. Anybody in the chamber wish to speak on this? I seeing nobody in the chamber. Ms. Godin, do we have anybody on the phones wishing to call in and talk on this resolution?
There are no callers in the queue, Vice Mayor.
All right, I'm going to read it one more time. It's Resolution RS 2020-519 by Councilmember Welsh. Resolution exempting Peachtree Drive-In located at 329 Peachtree Street from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit pursuant to Section 7.08.090E of the Metropolitan Code. Ms. Godin, anybody on the line?
There are no callers in the queue.
All right, declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Welsh, you're recognized on your resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move for approval.
Okay, Councilmember Welsh has moved for approval, properly seconded. Any discussion on the resolution? Seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? 38 to 0. Any questions to that? Resolution passes. We're on Resolution RS 2020-520 by Councilmember Sledge. Councilmember Sledge, do you plan to have a public hearing on this one tonight?
I do not.
You do not. Okay. So just for anybody listening in tonight, there is not going to be a public hearing on this one. So let me read the captions. It's Resolution RS 2020-520 by Councilmember Sledge. A resolution exempting DAD CBS LLC business as Good Time Charlie, located at 1529 4th Avenue South from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit. Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Public Safety, Councilmember Gamble.
Yes, Public Safety voted on a motion for 2 meeting deferral, 9 in favor, 0 against.
Okay. Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move for a 2-meeting deferral.
Councilmember Sledge has moved for a 2-meeting deferral, properly seconded. Any discussion on the 2-meeting deferral? So seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor of the 2-meeting deferral say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Anybody need to defer or to abstain? Hearing none, it's 38 to 0 on the motion to defer 2 meetings. That's the vote. We're on Resolution RS 2020-521 by Councilmember Taylor. Councilmember Taylor, do you wish to have a public hearing on this one tonight?
Yes, Vice Mayor, thank you.
All right. So if you're interested in this one, 521, go ahead and make that phone call in. Councilmember Taylor is the sponsor, Resolution RS 2020-521. Resolution exempting Willoughby's Kitchen and Lounge located at 918 Buchanan Street from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit. Again, it's Councilmember Taylor, Resolution RS 2020-521, resolution exempting Willie B's Kitchen and Lounge located at 918 Buchanan Street from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to have committee reports, please.
All right, you can have your committee reports. Public Safety, Councilmember Gamble.
Public Safety voted on the motion to approve, 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right, back to you, Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you. Open the public hearing, please.
Okay, declare the public hearing open. Anybody in the chamber wish to speak on this one? Seeing no one moving. Ms. Godin, do we have anybody on the phone lines?
There are no callers in the queue, Vice Mayor.
Okay, nobody on the queue. Let's read it one more time. Resolution RS 2020-521 by Councilmember Taylor. Resolution exempting Willie B's Kitchen and Lounge located at 918 Buchanan Street from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit pursuant to Section 7.08.090E of the Metropolitan Code. Ms. Godin, anybody on the phone?
There are no callers in the queue.
All right. Declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized on your resolution.
Thank you. Move for approval.
Okay, so Councilmember Taylor has moved for approval, properly seconded. Any discussion on the resolution? Councilmember Hurt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just want the record and maybe the listening audience to know that there have been some minority businesses that have established on Buchanan, and they go through the proper procedures in order to get the licenses that they need in order to operate in compliance. But because of some concerns with the neighbors, they are always calling the mayor's office, calling the police, and it has disrupted the businesses over there. And I just wanted to be made known that these businesses should be given the opportunity to operate just like any other business in the Davidson County community. And I thank Councilman Taylor for his efforts in this sponsorship, but just wanted to be known so if anything comes up at a later date, that it be recognized that there were no callers in the system. No one had any problems with this legislation moving forward.
All right, thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hurt. Anybody else in the queue? Seeing nobody else, we have a motion before us on 2025-21. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? 38 to 0. Resolution passes. Thank you, Councilmember Taylor. Resolution RS 2020-522 by Councilmember Sledge. Councilmember Sledge, do you wish to have a public hearing on this one tonight?
I do.
Okay. So if you're interested in this one, go ahead and make the phone call in. We're on Resolution RS 2020-522 by Councilmember Sledge. Resolution exempting the basement located at 1604 8th Avenue South from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit. Again, it's RS 2020-522 by Councilmember Sledge. It's a resolution exempting the basement located at 1604 8th Avenue South from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit pursuant to Section 7.08.090E of the Metropolitan Code. Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think I moved to open the public hearing.
Let's get a Public Safety Committee report first. Councilmember Gamble, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The committee voted on a motion to approve, 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right, so back to you, Councilmember Sledge.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Now I'll ask to open the public hearing.
All right, I declare the public hearing open. Anybody in the gallery that wants to talk on this particular matter? Seeing no one in the gallery. Ms. Godin, anybody on the phone lines?
There are no callers in the queue, Vice Mayor.
All right, let me read it one more time. This is Resolution RS 2020-522 by Councilmember Sledge. Resolution exempting the basement located at 1604 8th Avenue South from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit pursuant to Section 7.08.090E of the Metropolitan Code. Anybody in the queue? Ms. Godin.
There are no callers in the queue.
Okay, declare the public hearing closed. Back to you, Councilmember Sledge.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move approval with a brief comment.
All right. So I got a motion and a proper seconded. Back to you, Councilmember Sledge.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So as noted in the caption, this is for the basement, which is a pretty well-known institution on 8th Avenue South. I've been talking with the owner over the last several months, and typically I would defer this for a month like we did on a previous one on a public hearing bill in the district, but the owner has been working with the beer board and working with a lot of different folks and actually got delayed a bit because they were trying to figure out what the best process was for them, and then it was determined that it was the exemption. Essentially, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of these, quite frankly, coming in the next few months. This is going to be the way that the basement, quite frankly, stays alive in the time of COVID. And I think a lot of our event venues are going through similar difficulties, even with the actions that this body took recently. As far as CARES Act funding goes, this will allow for them to have appropriate, socially distanced outdoor events. And I've talked to residents nearby, they're good. And typically this stretch, a lot of times what triggers the exemption distance a lot of times is actually there's a Reservoir Park is across the street, and for some of these businesses, they are 99 feet away from that park. So with everybody in the area understanding and quite frankly wanting to see this venue continue, I would ask for council's approval. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Sledge. You've heard the motion, and it was properly seconded. Any discussion on the resolution? Seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? 38-0. Any changes to that? Our resolution passes. Thank you. We're now on Resolution RS 2020-523 by Councilmember O'Connell. Councilmember O'Connell, do you wish to have a public hearing on this one tonight?
Yes, sir, Mr. President, I do. Thank
All
you.
right. So if you're interested in this one, go ahead and make that phone call. Resolution RS 2020-523 by Councilmember O'Connell. A resolution exempting 11 Music Square East, apartment number 504, from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a short-term rental property non-owner occupied permit pursuant to Section 17.16.070U of the Metropolitan Code. Again, this is Councilmember O'Connell. It's Resolution RS 2020-523. Resolution exempting 11 Music Square East, apartment number 504, from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a short-term rental property non-owner occupied permit pursuant to Section 17.16.070U of the Metropolitan Code. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move a brief comment.
Now, you need a committee report, and then we need to open the public hearing. Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought I'm out of order yet. I will get a committee report.
All right. It was referred to Codes, Fair, and Farmers Market. Councilmember Cash, you're recognized.
We moved approval 8 in favor, 0 against.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Cash. Now back to you, Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to open the public hearing.
All right. So declare the public hearing open. I don't think there's anybody else left in the chamber except the press. Anybody in the press corps want to talk? Seeing nobody in the press corps. Ms. Godin, do we have anybody on the telephone?
There are no callers in the queue, Vice Mayor.
All right, let me read it one more time. Councilmember O'Connell's Resolution RS 2020-523, a resolution exempting 11 Music Square East, apartment number 504, from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a short-term rental property non-owner occupied permit. Councilmember, well, let me check one more time. Ms. Godin, anybody on the phone lines?
Hopefully for the last time, there are no callers in the queue, Vice Mayor.
All right, thank you. I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized on RS 2020-523. Councilmember O'Connell? Okay, hold just a second. We may be having some technical problems. Well, I'm waiting for Councilmember O'Connell to come back on. I will say, just for the record, RS 2020-520 that Councilmember Sledge deferred. There were documents that were submitted for the record this afternoon. You can get them to the clerk's office. Again, RS 2020-520. There were documents that were submitted for the record this afternoon. Councilmember O'Connell, can you hear us?
He lost it. He's back on.
Okay, Councilmember.
Mr. President, I'm back.
All right, Councilmember O'Connell, we declare the public hearing closed. You're on your resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry, I had a brief internet there. I'd like to move approval with a brief comment.
All right, so I got a motion to approve, properly seconded. Back to you, Councilmember O'Connell.
My hand up.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilmember Hauser, I've got your hand, but I need to go to Councilmember O'Connell first for the motion. Okay?
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay. Councilmember O'Connell, back to you for your explanation.
Thank you. This is the first of its kind that I'm aware of where we, as a result of Councilmember Sledge's distance requirement for short-term rental permits, are now looking at extensions. And this is exactly what the intent of the bill was. This is a building on Music Row, somewhat proximate to a park within the parameters of the legislation, and it is a building with a lot of other non-owner-occupied short-term rental permits in an area where I think it actually is an appropriate use. And so I think this bill should serve members across Nashville and Davidson County in giving the opportunity to make sure that we are providing residents appropriate access to public goods and amenities. So I appreciate Councilmember Sledge for bringing it, and I encourage members to support. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember O'Connell. Councilmember Hauser, you're recognized.
My question, he may have answered it, is what was the short-term rental near that he needed to access to make this change? Did he say that it was closer to a park than what was allowed? Was that the answer?
Councilmember O'Connell?
Yes, it's near a park. Thank you, Mr. President. It's near a park.
Okay, and so in your opinion, this will not impede the community's use of the park?
No, in this area, there is very much a mix of uses. There's very little residential use at this point in that area of Music Row. So I don't, and that building already has multiple permits of this type. I don't see this as particularly disruptive to access, honestly.
Thank you, Councilmember Hauser. Anybody else with questions? All right, seeing nobody else in the queue, Councilmember Hauser, you may want to take your hand down. Okay. Nobody else in the queue. We're ready to vote. This is on Resolution RS 2020-523 by Councilmember O'Connell. The motion is to approve, and it was properly seconded. Seeing nobody else in the queue, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Hearing none, it's 38-0. Any corrections to that? Resolution passes. Resolution RS 2020-523 passes. All right, so I believe that takes us through all resolutions on public hearing. We are now ready to go to consent agenda resolutions and resolutions. I'm going to read you the resolutions that are on the consent agenda. If something needs to be bumped, let me know. So here are the items on the consent agenda. I've got resolution RS 2020-524, 2020-526, and then 528 all the way through 541, all the way through the end of what you've got on your calendar. Okay? Again, it's RS 2020-524, RS 2020-526, and then RS 2020-528, all the way through RS 2020-541. Anything that needs to be bumped off that calendar? Councilmember Evans, you're recognized.
Thank you. Could you pull off 527, please?
It's already off. 527
Great,
is
thank
not
you.
on consent. Councilmember Gamble, you're recognized.
Yes, will you pull off resolution 541, please?
541 will be bumped. Okay. Okay. All right. Anything else? Anything else that needs to be bumped? Okay. All right. Here we go. I'm going to read the resolution on the consent agenda. Resolution RS 2020-524 by Council Members Rutherford, Toombs, and others. Resolution approving an application for a Public Works and Economic Adjustment Assistance Programs grant from the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration to the Metropolitan Government in conjunction with the Native American Indian Association to provide a new structure to house a Circle of Life Cultural Center with administrative offices, exhibit space, and a cultural heritage museum. RS 2020-526 by Toombs, Gamble, and Welsh. A resolution approving a contract between the State of Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services and the Metropolitan Government for establishing agreed rates for court-ordered evaluations and treatment for defendants charged with misdemeanor crimes. RS 2020-528 by Councilmember Gamble, a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency to negotiate and enter into a pilot agreement to payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to multifamily housing project 579 Hickory Hills Boulevard, known as Hickory Ridge Phase 2. Resolution RS 2020-529 by Toombs, Welsh, and Swara. Resolution approving revised Amendment 2 to a Youth Development Center grant from the Tennessee Department of Finance Administration to the Metro Government acting through the Nashville Public Library to improve community adults, out-of-school time educators, families, and school staff, readiness to support positive child-youth development and cultivate safe environments in the lives of children and youth. Resolution RS 2020-530 by Toombs and Welsh. Resolution approving a contract between the Metropolitan Government through the Metro Board of Health and the Tennessee Department of Human Services to provide services to establish paternity for fathers seeking voluntary acknowledgement of paternity for child support enforcement. Resolution RS 2020-531 by Toombs, Welsh, and Swara. Resolution accepting a grant from the State of Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Government acting through and by the Metropolitan Board of Health to build local capacity to improve public health response to the substance misuse epidemic in Middle Tennessee high impact area. Resolution RS 2020-532 by Councilmember Welsh. Resolution approving Amendment 2 to a contract between the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health and the National Academy of Medicine to provide access to the Charisma Salis database system for patient and prescription tracking. Resolution RS 2020-533 by Councilmember Welsh, a resolution approving a dental provider service agreement between the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health and DentaQuest USA Insurance Company to allow the Metropolitan Public Health Department to become an in-network provider with TennCare Cover Kids dental service. Resolution RS 2020-534 by Councilmembers Toombs, Bradford, and Hancock. Resolution accepting a grant from the Friends of Metro Animal Care and Control to the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide low-cost medical services and behavioral vouchers to assist in decreasing the relinquishment of animals. Resolution RS 2020-535 by Councilmembers Toombs, Bradford, and Hancock. A resolution accepting a grant from the Friends of Metro Animal Care and Control to the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide low-cost supplies to assist in decreasing the relinquishment of animals to Metro Animal Care and Control. Resolution RS 2020-536 by Councilmembers Toombs, Gamble, and Welsh. Resolution approving Amendment 1 to a contract between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Infor Inc. to provide maintenance and support of workforce time and attendance software for the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department. Resolution RS 2020-537 by Councilmember Toombs, a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the claims of Samuel Galusi and Hannah Galusi against the Metropolitan Government in the amount of $260,000, said amounts to be paid out of the Self-Insured Liability Fund. Resolution RS 2020-538 by Council Members Parker, Toombs, Murphy, and Nash. It's a resolution approving Amendment 1 to an agreement by and between the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and the And resolution RS, excuse me, RS 2020-540 by Councilmember Allen Cash and Pulley. Resolution honoring Joseph Hamilton for his role in the discovery and naming of chemical element number 117, tennessine. Did I say it wrong?
Tennessine.
Tennessine. Excuse me. Thank you, Councilmember Allen. All right, so those are the items on the consent agenda. Does anything need to be pulled? Councilmember Welsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Yes, I would like to pull, if I could, RS 2020-524.
Okay, 524 is pulled.
Thank you.
All right, anything else that needs to be pulled? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to take committee reports. I'll start first with affordable housing. Councilmember Suarez, you're recognized.
Thank you. Affordable housing voted on RS 2020-528. The committee voted 8 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Suarez. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
I can just go through my full list, right?
That's right.
Okay. Budget and Finance recommended approval for Resolution 2020-526, 528, 529, 530, 531, 534, 535, 536, 537, 538, 539, 12 for, 0 against.
So that was left over. Okay.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Toombs. Councilmember Welsh, did you have something else you need to say? Your hand's still up.
No, sorry, it's just hanging on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Councilmember Toombs. Health and Hospitals, Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you. Health and Hospitals voted to approve RS 2020-530, RS 2020-531, RS 2020-532, RS 2020-533, RS 2020-534, and RS 2020-535. 7 in favor, 0 against, and no abstentions for each one.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Taylor. Parks, Library, and Arts, Councilmember Van Rees.
Parks, Libraries, and Arts met on 2020-529 and passed in favor, 7-0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Van Rees. Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you. We voted for the resolutions on consent calendar, 16 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, then with 2025-38. Councilmember Gamble, Public Safety.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Public Safety voted on resolutions 525 as amended, 9 in favor, 0 against, 526 and 536. Motion for approval, 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Gamble. Public Works, Councilmember Nash. Thank you, Councilmember Nash. Councilmember Johnston, you're the last person.
Thank you. The Rules, Confirmations, and Public Elections considered RS 2020-540. We voted 10 in favor, 0 against. And with that, I would move passage of all the items on consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Johnston. You've heard the motion properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor of the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? Vote is 38-0. Any corrections to that? The consent agenda passes. Okay, so go back to the beginning of the consent agenda or the resolutions. It's resolution RS 2020-450. Sponsors are council members Druffel, Mendez, Toombs, and others. a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement by and between the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Government acting through the Department of Public Works for the reimbursement of railroad crossing safety improvements at Post Road. Councilmember Druffel, you are recognized.
Committee reports, please.
All right, so I've got Budget and Finance, Councilmember Toombs.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Budget and Finance recommended approval for Resolution 2024-50 as amended, 12-4-0 against.
All right, thank you. Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Murphy. Councilmember Murphy. Okay, let's go to Councilmember Nash for Public Works, and then I'll come back to Councilmember Murphy. Councilmember Nash, Public Works.
Public Works.
Councilmember Nash, your microphone is off. There you go.
Resolution 2025-50 was approved, 10 in favor, 0 against.
All right. Councilmember Murphy, Planning and Zoning.
Yes, I'm sorry. Can you give me the number again? I set off my fire alarm.
It's Resolution RS 2020-450 by Councilmember Druffel.
Oh, we voted 16 in favor, 0 against. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so back to you, Councilmember Druffel.
Yeah, I need to move the amendment. The amendment, it's a sort of a complicated intersection. They went back, Public Works went back and did some an assessment for other projects and costing out, and so I'd like to move the amendment.
Okay, so Councilmember Druffel moves his amendment, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing no discussion on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? Amendment passes 38-0. Councilmember Druffel, you're back on your bill as amended. I'm sorry, your resolution as amended.
Yeah, I'd like to move the resolution as amended, please.
All right, so Councilmember Druffel has moved his resolution as amended, properly seconded. Discussion, Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to take the opportunity. And we came out with a better resolution and a safer intersection for people needing to cross. And so I just wanted to thank Councilman Druffel and Public Works staff and PDOT for that.
Well, and I got a good heads up from you too, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Henderson. Councilmember Druffel, nobody else in the queue. The motion is to approve Resolution RS 2020-450 as amended. All those in favor of the resolution as amended, say aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed, no. Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? 38-0. Resolution RS 2020-450 as amended passes. All right, so we're now on substitute resolution RS 2020-480, and actually also resolution RS 2020-518. These are the two charter amendments. So I'm going to explain how I think this works, and I'm going to make sure Mr. Cooper is on so he can make sure that I've got this corrected.
You may want to get committee reports first because that's going to change what happens.
All right, so let's do this. Okay, I'm going to get the committee reports first on both these measures, substitute resolution RS 2480 and resolution RS 2020-518 from Councilmember Syracuse. Councilmember Syracuse, can you give us the committee reports on both these matters, including the Charter Revision Commission report?
Sure, thank you, Vice Mayor. First, why don't I give the report from the Charter Revision Commission.
Okay.
Concerning substitute resolution 2020-480, the commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the charter amendments, and I believe there was a small amendment that we have to consider tonight on that the commission did recommend. As far as 2020-518, the Charter Commission voted unanimously to recommend disapproval of each of those charter amendments contained therein. As far as the Charter Revision Committee here, we voted on 2020-518, and we voted 8 in favor, 0 against on a 1-meeting deferral.
480 was approved last meeting.
Okay. Hold on just a second. So what are we going to do? Okay. So what is Bob wants to do? They have to get it done. Bob's going to move his. Right. So we just. Okay, so we're double checking to make sure we have our process in place. So what's going on is substitute resolution RS 2020-480, as you remember, was passed at the last meeting. There is an amendment by Councilmember Mendez. Resolution RS 2020-518 is deferred by rule. So I'm going to ask.
Point of order, Vice Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Glover?
While I appreciate it's being deferred by rule, once again, we're blocking the people's voice. I'm trying to understand.
This is not a point of order, Mr. President.
Hold on. Mr. Glover has the floor.
I'm trying to understand why we combined the two before we got to any amendments. So I really don't understand why that occurred.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Mr. Cooper to explain how this process works in terms of trying to make sure that we have this correct. Mr. Cooper.
So typically when you have multiple charter amendments with multiple resolutions, the committee, at least in the past, has made a recommendation on each of those, and then you consider each one separately. Each amendment has to get 27 votes, and then the ones that get 27 votes are rolled into the first resolution, kind of as a master resolution. The procedural situation we're in now is Resolution 518 and the amendments attached thereto were deferred for 1 meeting. And since this is the first time that resolution had gone before the Charter Revision Committee, that is an automatic deferral by rule tonight, which means the amendments cannot be considered or put on the ballot tonight.
Okay, so I just want clarification. So 518 cannot be considered nor put on the ballot in December?
Not without a suspension of the rules, that's correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Rosenberg, did you have a point of order?
I don't, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right. So, the way we've got it now, substitute resolution RS 2020-480 is before us tonight. RS 2020-518 is deferred by rule unless there is a motion to suspend the rules to get it back before us. All right. So I'm going to start with substitute resolution RS 2020-480. And let me explain how this works. So there is one proposed amendment in substitute resolution RS 2020-480 that is to be taken up at one time. There is an amendment that we'll have to consider, and then we'll figure out what to do with 2020-518, even though it appears to be deferred by rule. Councilmember Mendez, I'm going to recognize you on substitute resolution RS 2020-480.
I'd like to move the substitute resolution, and then after that gets seconded, move an amendment.
All right, so Councilmember Mendez has moved substitute resolution RS 2020-480, properly seconded. Back to you for an amendment.
Thank you. There is an amendment in the package, page 19 of the amendments package. I'd like to move that with an explanation.
All right, so there's a motion on the amendment on substitute resolution RS 2020-480, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
All right, thanks. Very briefly before getting to the amendment, you'll recall from our last meeting that the purpose of the substitute is to clear up really terrible conflicts that would be introduced into the charter by the petition referendum item. It's so poorly drafted that it would introduce multiple places where the charter would conflict with itself and become really unworkable. So the substitute that we added last time was designed to clarify any conflicts in favor of the existing charter language. Here this week, adding two amendments. One is, or two changes. One is to remove language about a private right of action, and the concern that came from one Charter Revision Commission member was that maybe we were being too hasty in adding that language and that there might be unintended consequences. Strictly speaking, that language was not in response to the petition referendum item, was something that an idea, frankly, from Metro Legal. So we're taking that out in deference to the comment from the Charter Revision Commission about making sure there's not unintended consequences. And the other new language relates to sports teams. And frankly, when I did the substitute a couple weeks ago, the thinking wasn't really ready for prime time. This language would confirm that the council and the mayor have the discretion, but not the obligation, to limit sports-related contracts if teams move out of town. The petition language that's out there would make that mandatory and tie our hands. This language would make it so we've got the power to do that, but not mandatory. And again, this clarifies conflicts between the petition language and the existing charter, driven by the petition language just being barely understandable in some places and definitely creating conflicts with the charter. So with that, I'd renew my request to approve the amendment to add to the substitute.
All right, so you've heard an explanation of the amendment. Questions on the amendment? Councilmember Glover, you're recognized.
Yes, Vice Mayor, thank you. So let's say that the 2% passes, which I firmly believe that it will, especially now, and this one passes. How does that work exactly on the vote count, and what needs to happen in order for the people to finally be heard at some point?
So, Councilmember Glover, you're directing that to Councilmember Mendez?
No, I'm really kind of directing it, I think, to Director Cooper.
Mr. Cooper, can you answer that one?
If the question is what happens if this amendment gets put on the ballot and then both the petition amendment and this amendment passes, in that case, the language in this amendment that the council is considering now would control, because it includes language that provides that notwithstanding anything else in the charter, here's what you do. So that's what would happen if they both passed.
So if they both pass and the people wish to roll it back, does this basically block the people's voice once again?
I'm not sure if Mr. Cooper can answer that one.
Okay. All right. So I guess what I'm trying to find out is, what's the real purpose here? And then I do have one final question I know you can't answer, Mr. Cooper. I think the correct language is we get 2 opportunities per term to do charter amendments with the council. And so in doing this, we have now used up one of those 2 opportunities. Is that correct?
That's correct. The council can pass 2 resolutions per term, and within each resolution, you can have multiple amendments, but only 2 resolutions per term. So this would use up one of those opportunities.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. We're still on the amendment by Councilmember Mendez. I've got Councilmember Mendez.
Thanks. Just briefly in response to the council member's comment just now, if it goes on the referendum and the people vote for it, the people will have had their voice. So this is an opportunity to, if the people want to restrict Metro government from being able to operate the way it does now, they've got a choice. If the people would like to have Metro government operate as it has, they've got that choice. This is all about empowering the people, council member.
So we've got an amendment before us. Checking the queue. Nobody else in the queue. We're ready to vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say no. Opposed, no. I heard, I think, one. Any abstentions? Okay, voice vote. Amendment passes. Amendment passes by voice vote. We're now on your substitute resolution RS 2020-480 as amended. Councilor Mendez.
And move the substitute as amended, please.
All right. So Councilmember Mendez has moved the substitute resolution RS 2020-480 as amended, properly seconded. Discussion on the substitute resolution RS 2020-480. Seeing nobody in the queue, this requires 27 votes.
So we need to do them.
So we will do it by roll call. So again, because this is now let's make sure I'm going to go to Mr. Cooper. You're voting on substitute resolution RS 2020-480?
As amended.
As amended. So is this, do we vote on this and then we have to vote again? Or is this the vote?
Yeah, we're voting on the amendment as amended right now.
Okay.
And then if that gets 27 votes, I mean, with it just being one, we could probably suspend the rules and do them both at the same time, since there's only one amendment. It doesn't make much sense to do two votes when there's only one amendment. So I think we consider this as the vote on the resolution and the charter amendment that goes with the resolution.
Okay, so let's go through this very carefully, okay? Because as was indicated, we only have two chances during a term to amend the charter. This would be one. And so what Mr. Cooper just said, and I'll get him to repeat it, we're getting ready to vote on substitute resolution RS 2020-480 as amended. Resolution RS 2020-518, which has three amendments in it, is not before us because it was deferred by rule. So I think the issue is typically you put everything together, you have to vote on the amendment separately, and then you put whatever passes together in one resolution, and then you have to pass it again with 27 votes. At this point, because we only have one amendment before us on substitute resolution RS 2020-480 as amended, the question is, can we vote on, if this is the vote, is this the vote that puts it on the charter, that puts it before the people on the charter on December the 5th?
Yes, Vice Mayor, unless there is a motion to suspend the rules to consider those other amendments, then this vote would be the vote to approve the charter amendment and approve the resolution to put the charter amendment on the ballot.
Okay. Questions from the council? We're talking about an amendment to the charter. Councilmember Glover.
Then I will move to suspend the rules on 518.
Okay. So Councilmember Glover has moved to suspend the rules on RS 2020-518. Do you want to say something before I see if there's any objections?
Yes, and all it simply does is this gives another opportunity for people to say, over a 4-year period, you could raise taxes 24%. I do believe this fits within the charter guidelines. I do believe it's legal. I can ask Mr. Cooper to verify it. He helped write it, so I believe it does meet all the criteria. So I would just ask, if we don't do any other amendments, we at least give the people the opportunity to limit us on how much we can raise taxes at one particular time on a percentage basis.
Okay.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. So here's where we are. Resolution RS 2020-518 is deferred by rule. Councilmember Glover has moved to suspend the rules to have the resolution heard tonight. Is there objection to suspension of the rules? So I see hands. I see more than 2 hands, so there is objection. All right, so we are back to substitute resolution RS 2020-480 as amended. So any further questions? So if you're voting on this, we're going to a roll call vote. 27 votes is necessary. If there are 27 votes or more, this goes to be voted on by on December the 5th. Now, I'm going to ask one last question because there's a provision in the resolution that says if for some reason the other amendment does not, there is no charter provision that is voted on December 5th, this comes off. I'm going to go to Councilor Mendez just to make sure that's clear. Councilor Mendez, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The amendment that we added includes language that states the intention that if there is no election due to the petition item not being on a ballot for whatever reason, that we wouldn't be forcing an election on just this item. The intention is for them to be together. That's not really going to be our call. This is just us stating our intention to the Election Commission, and once it got 27 votes here today, it would be up to them.
Sorry, what? On the 2 chances of the charter, if it's not on there.
Yeah, so my opinion would be, since the language that was added really makes this resolution contingent upon there actually being an election otherwise on December 5th, the resolution will include specific language saying that the resolution is null and void if there is no election on December 5th. So my opinion would be that if that happened, then that would not count as one of the 2 resolutions the council can adopt because it would be null and void on its face.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cooper. Councilmember Swope, you're recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think Councilmember Mendez may have just answered my question, but I will this with Director Cooper. Hey.
Councilmember Swope, we're having, hold on just a second, we're having trouble hearing you. Go ahead and start again if you don't mind.
I'm sorry. While this is directed to Cooper, I think I commented back to this question, Director Cooper, I'd ask for your clarification. But it seems to me that this picture is doing nothing to change the current status quo of the way we operate and simply acts as a block to the petition referendum. Am I correct?
So we're having, Councilmember Swope, we're having trouble hearing you. Can you, need to do this, either repeat it or can you call me and then I'll put it on the microphone? Look, for the council members and for the ladies and for the people in the audience, we are talking about amendments to the charter. We don't do that very often, so we want to make sure we get this all correct. Councilmember Swope, can you call me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm doing that right now.
All right. All right, Councilmember Swope, can you hear me?
You hear me?
Yeah.
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep. Okay, you're on the microphone.
Excellent. This question may be direct. It is directed towards Director Cooper, and I think Councilmember Mendez may have just partially answered this, but I want clarification for everyone, if I may. My question is this: if this particular resolution or charter amendment, as it were, is set up to block a petition from the people of the city, and for no other reason does it exist, I don't think it changes anything in our current charter. Does it or does it not?
Yes, it does make amendments to the charter. It changes the language in the actual sections that would be impacted by the petition language to clarify how those conflicts would be handled and that the conflicts would be resolved in favor of this resolution.
But substantially, it doesn't change anything about the tax rate that we currently have or anything else to that matter, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
It's more of a housekeeping amendment.
Well, I wouldn't characterize it as housekeeping, but you're correct. It does not change any. It would preserve the existing authority that the council has for setting the tax rate.
I appreciate your answers. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Swope. Let's see. Anybody else in the queue? All right. So again, we are on the board, or excuse me, we're doing a roll call vote. This is a vote on substitute resolution RS 2024-80 as amended. If it gets 27 votes, it goes to a vote on December the 5th, unless for some reason there is nothing on December the 5th, and then it does not, if that's clear. Okay. Anybody got any questions? Again, the reason I'm taking so long on this, want to make sure this is right. We don't do this very often. Councilmember Rosenberg?
Pass, Vice Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilmember Swope, your hand is still up? Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mendez.
Yes.
Hurt.
Yes.
Allen. Yes. Glover.
No.
Swara.
Yes.
Hall. Toombs. Yes. Gamble.
Yes.
Swope.
No.
Parker.
Yes.
Yes. Withers.
Yes.
Benedict.
Yes.
Van Reese.
Yes.
Hancock.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Hager.
No.
No. Evans.
No.
No. Bradford. Yes. Broughton. Syracuse. Yes. Welsh.
Yes.
Sledge.
Yes.
Cash.
Yes.
O'Connell.
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Hauser.
Yes.
Druffel.
Yes.
Murphy. Councilmember Murphy. Yes. Pulley.
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Yes. Nash.
Yes.
Vercher. Councilmember Vercher. Porterfield.
Yes.
Yes. Sepulveda.
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
Stiles.
Yes.
Henderson.
All right. Thank you, council members. The vote was 33 yes, 4 no's. So the vote is 33-4. Substitute resolution RS 2024-80 as amended passes. All right, so we're now on to Resolution RS 2020-525 by Councilmember Toombs.
Yes, committee reports for Resolution 525, a motion for approval as amended, 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Gamble. Back to you, Councilmember Toombs.
Budget and Finance Committee approved the resolution as amended, 12-4-0 against. I'd like to move the resolution.
All right, so you're going to move the resolution, properly seconded. I've got an amendment by Councilmember Mendez. Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized.
I'd like to move the amendment with a brief explanation.
All right, a motion to approve the amendment, properly seconded. Back to you, Councilmember Mendez.
Thank you. I worked out
And also, I had pulled Resolution 524 off consent, and we skipped it. So I just wanted to remind you of that. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I missed it for some reason. I'll come back to it. All right, 525. We're still on Resolution RS 2020-525. We're on the amendment. Any other discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Amendment passes. All right, we're back on Resolution RS 2020-525 as amended. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Move for approval.
So the motion is to approve 2020-525 as amended, properly seconded. Any discussion on the resolution? Seeing nobody in the queue, we're on the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? Vote is 37-0. Any corrections on that? All right, that's the vote. Okay, so I'm going to go back. Resolution RS 2020-524. Thank you, Councilmember Welsh. This is a measure sponsored by Councilmember Rutherford, Toombs, Welsh, and others. It's a resolution approving an application for a Public Works and Economic Adjustment Assistance Program grant from the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration to the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County in conjunction with the Native American Indian Association to provide a new structure to house a Circle of Life Cultural Center with administrative offices, exhibit space, and a cultural heritage museum. Councilmember Rutherford, you're recognized. Councilmember Rutherford? He's there. Councilmember Rutherford? There you go. You need to unmute. Hold on. Councilmember Rutherford is rebooting right now.
That's no longer a kitty cat.
Toombs as co-sponsor, if you wanted to.
Councilmember Toombs, can you handle this one while we're waiting for Councilmember Rutherford?
Sure. Committee report.
So I've got committee report, so give me the budget report, and then I'll go to public safety.
Budget and Finance recommended approval, 12-4-0 against.
All right, the public safety, Councilmember Gamble. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Just on the budget?
Yep.
Okay, I had moved on to the next one. I've got to get my numbers right. All right, so Councilmember Toombs has given the budget and finance report. Councilmember Rutherford, are you back on? All right, so Councilmember, I hate to do this until Councilmember Rutherford gets here. It's his bill.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Councilmember Van Rees?
I'd be happy to sign on to this resolution so that we can move it forward.
Oh, so we've got plenty of people on it. We just are waiting for Councilmember Rutherford since he was the one who sponsored it. All right, so so while we're waiting for Councilmember Rutherford to reboot, I'm going to go to Councilmember Welsh. You're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Mayor. I pulled this off consent actually as kind of a moment of personal privilege. A very dear friend of mine, Gladys Bratzer, has worked with the Native American Indian Association for a large chunk of her life, and this was a project very, very near and dear to her heart. She recently died of COVID, and the last time that we spoke, in fact, the last time that she could speak, she asked me if I would do everything that I could on council to try to move this forward, and I promised her that I would, and I am just, in her honor tonight, I will very proudly vote for this, and I appreciate this moment of personal privilege. This meant very much to her, and consequently means very, very much to me, so thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Welsh. Councilmember Rutherford?
Yes, I'm with you now.
There he is. Okay, so we've been talking about your resolution. We have a motion on the resolution. It's been properly seconded. Do you have anything to say on your resolution?
I missed the entire thing with Councilmember Welsh, so my apologies. I was in the process of rebooting, so I'm not sure what that was about or if there's something in particular that I need to address in relation to the questions you might have.
Councilmember Welsh, I think, was talking about how important this resolution is to a friend who has passed away and that it's important to her. So there was nothing but positive things about your resolution.
Oh, okay. Thanks for rehashing that. I appreciate that. This has been something that's been in the works for a while. It actually dates back to the previous term, and this is something that we're going to be very proud of to have in not only District 31, but in Nashville as a whole. It will be a great addition to our city, and I'm happy to move approval.
All right. So, Councilmember Rutherford, we have a motion to approve, properly seconded. Anybody else in the queue? Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution RS 2020-524 indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain for any reason? 37-0, resolution passes. Thank you both, Councilmember Rutherford and Councilmember Welsh. We're now on Resolution RS 2020-527 by Councilmember Hall. It's a resolution appropriating a total of $1.5 million from the COVID-19 Pandemic Fund to Jefferson Street United Merchants Partnership and Community Outreach, Testing, and Care. Councilmember Hall, are you on the call? Councilmember Hall. All right, so it's an automatic deferral under Rule 14, and it's an automatic deferral. So it's a deferred one meeting because Councilmember Hall is not here. All right, bill is deferred. A resolution is deferred one meeting. All right, so we're now on Resolution RS 2020-541 by Councilmember Gamble. Resolution recognizing the naming of streets in District 3 in honor of former Metro Council members Chester Hughes and Dr. Carolyn Baldwin Tucker. Councilmember Gamble, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report, please.
All right, Rules Committee, Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Rules voted in favor, 10 in favor, 0 against.
All right, Councilmember Gamble, you're recognized.
I'd like to move for approval with the brief explanation.
All right, Councilmember Gamble has moved passage of Resolution RS 2020-541, properly seconded. Back to you.
Thank you. This resolution is recognizing the naming of streets in District 3 in former council members Chester Hughes and Dr. Carolyn Baldwin Tucker, and they were very influential in our community, doing great work while they served in the Metro Council from 2003 until his death in 2004 after a brief illness. And whereas Councilmember Hughes was instrumental in the securing much-needed retail establishments in District 3, including the Walmart at Skyline Commons and the Walgreens at the corner of Dickerson Road and Old Hickory Boulevard. And whereas Councilmember Hughes also fought to have utility lines constructed underground in new residential subdivisions to enhance utility services and improve the aesthetic quality of streetscapes and neighborhoods. And whereas Dr. Carolyn Baldwin Tucker, as the first African-American woman elected as a council member at large in Davidson County in 1999, and whereas Dr. Tucker is a retired school principal and former administrator in Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools with more than 50 years of experience as an educator, and whereas Dr. Tucker also served as an interim superintendent of Murfreesboro Schools and a consultant for the Tennessee Department of Education, and whereas Habitat for Humanity is in the process of obtaining approval of a new residential subdivision near Village Trail in District 3, which will include Chester Hughes Circle and Dr. Carolyn Tucker Circle as two of the streets to be dedicated to the Metropolitan government for acceptance and maintenance, and whereas it is fitting and proper that the Metropolitan Council recognizes and commemorates the naming of this right-of-way in honor of Chester Hughes and Dr. Carolyn Baldwin Tucker. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, Section 1, the Metropolitan Council hereby goes on record as recognizing the naming of the streets in District 3 in honor of former Metro Council members Chester Hughes and Dr. Carolyn Baldwin Tucker. This resolution shall take effect from and after its adoption, the welfare of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County requiring it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Gamble. So we got our motion to approve Resolution RS 2025-41. It's been properly seconded. I've got a couple people on the queue. Councilmember Welsh, your hand's up.
Sorry, Vice Mayor.
All right, Councilmember Lee, you're recognized.
Mr. Vice Mayor, would it be appropriate to ask if all those voting in the affirmative could be added onto the resolution?
Unless there's an objection, then everybody voting in the affirmative becomes a sponsor of this resolution. Thank you, Councilmember Lee.
Sir.
You're welcome. Anybody else in the queue? We're voting on Resolution RS 2025-41 by Councilmember Gamble and hopefully everyone else. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye. Aye.
The vote is 37-0. Resolution passes. Thank you, Councilmember Gamble, and thank you, Councilmember Lee. That ends the resolutions. We have 3 late filed resolutions. I'm going to go to Councilmember Sepulveda first for the first of the 3 late filed resolutions. Mr. Cooper, if you don't mind, if you've got it. We had it. All right.
If you give me just a second, I apologize.
That's okay. I think I may have it somewhere.
I'm having major computer problems. So.
All right. So, Councilmember Sepulveda, what we're trying to do is find the caption of the bill.
It's ridiculous. Okay.
Got it?
I'll put it up so you can see it a little larger. Okay. Can you see this?
You want to just read it?
Let me read it.
Mr. Cooper is going to read the caption.
is a resolution accepting a grant from Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the National Farmers Market, for $100,000 in CARES Act funds to be used to reimburse farmers market vendors/farmers who accept food vouchers provided by Second Harvest to Davidson County residents affected by COVID-19.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cooper. Well done. Councilmember Sepulveda, you're recognized on your late file resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Move to suspend the rules.
All right, so let me ask you that. Did you take this before the Rules Committee?
Yes.
All right, so let me get a report from Councilmember Johnston. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. Rules, confirmations and public elections did not have any objection.
All right, okay, so Councilmember Sepulveda, you've heard the explanation of the caption. Councilmember Sepulveda has moved to suspend the rules to get this before us tonight. Any objection? Seeing nobody in the queue, rules are suspended. Councilmember Sepulveda, you're on your resolution.
Great. So before you is just an amendment to the $2.5 million that was approved for Second Harvest. It's allocating $100,000 from that fund to farmers and vendors at the farmers market to reimburse them for vouchers that Second Harvest gave out.
All right. So thank you, Councilmember Sepulveda. Did it go before any other? Did it go before budget?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm going to go to a budget. Did it only budget? Is that the only committee it went to?
Codes. It went to codes and farmers market.
All right. So let me get a report from Councilmember Toombs first, and then I'll go to you, Councilmember Cash.
Budget and Finance voted for approval, 12-4-0 again.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Cash, you're recognized for Codes Committee.
We voted approval 8-0.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Cash. Councilmember Sepulveda, you're on your resolution.
That's the only thing I could connect to.
All you have to do is move for passage if you're ready.
Thank you. Yeah, move for approval.
Okay. So Councilmember Sepulveda has moved for approval, properly seconded. Any discussion on the late file resolution? Seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? Vote is 37-0. Councilmember Sepulveda, you pass your resolution. All right, we got two other late filed. These are both MAC grants. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized on two of these measures.
Move to suspend the rules.
All right, so can we take these together or have to be taken separately?
We can take them together.
Okay, so I'm going to get Mr. Cooper to read the captions before we vote on the suspension.
Okay, the first one is a resolution to appropriate grant funds from the Tennessee Housing Development Agency to the Metro, acting by and through the Metropolitan Action Commission for low-income home energy assistance program services targeted toward the elderly, disabled, veterans, and households with children under the age of 6 years. And And the second one is a resolution to appropriate supplemental benefit grant funds from the Tennessee Housing Development Agency to Metro, acting by and through the Metropolitan Action Commission for low-income home energy assistance program services targeted toward the elderly, disabled, veterans, and households with children under the age of 6 years. These two resolutions are the same program operated through MAC. It's just coming through two different sources of state funding, or two different buckets.
All right, so we've got these two late file resolutions, and we'll take them together. Councilmember Toombs is moving suspension of the rules. Councilmember Johnston, a report from the Rules Committee.
Rules had no objection to either one of those suspension of the rules.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Johnston. Councilmember Toombs, I believe you moved for suspension of the rules. So Councilmember Toombs has moved for suspension of the rules to hear both these late file resolutions, these two MAC grants. Any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing none, rules are suspended. You're on both these resolutions. Take them up at the same time. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
For committee reports.
You took them, I assume they went to budget. Did they go anywhere else?
Just maybe
Health hospitals.
Health and hospitals, okay. Any discussion on the late file resolutions? We're voting on both of them. Seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? 37 to 0. Both resolutions pass. Thank you, Councilmember Toombs. Okay, so that completes, I believe, everything on our resolution calendar. We're on bills on introduction and first reading. Any bills that need to come off that need to be considered separately? Councilmember Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I would like BL 2024-50 to be pulled off, please.
All right, thank you. BL 2024-50 is pulled off introduction and first reading. Anybody else? Anything else needs to be pulled off? Okay, if there's no other objection, we'll consider all other ordinances except for BL 2024-50 on first reading and one voted at this time. Motion to adopt. See a motion to adopt, properly seconded. Any discussion on bills on first reading? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? Votes 37 to 0. Bills pass on first reading. And now we're back to BL 2024-50. This is Councilmember Suara, O'Connell, Pulley, and others. It's an ordinance to amend the Geographic Information System street and alley centerline layout for the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by changing the name of Fifth Avenue North and Opry Place to Representative John Lewis Way North, and by changing the name of Fifth Avenue South to Representative John Lewis Way South. Councilmember Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment on the bill with an explanation.
Okay, so Councilmember Suara has moved an amendment on 2024-50. It's properly seconded. Back to you for discussion.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I know we typically don't do conversation on first reading, but this amendment is crucial to this bill moving forward. As the bill reads, we all know the extent of late Representative John Lewis' connection to Nashville, and so the Minority Caucus, working with a group of community members, decided to name Fifth Avenue after him. And there's a lot of stories and history and connection on Fifth Avenue to Representative John Lewis, from Jefferson to the Freedom Riders on the bus stations, to the sit-ins at Woodward, to the National City Cemetery. There's so much connection. We're planning a trail. We have some of the people that participated in the sit-ins, Professor Gloria McKissick, ready to do a tour. There's a plan for a walk from one end to the other. We've got support from American Baptist, from Fisk, from Ryman. Representative Lewis have connection to Ryman Auditorium, the Country Music Hall of Fame, Predator Sounds, the Hilton. There's a lot of support. We have a petition online from the community. Everybody supports this endeavor, and as a way to unite our community and bring us around something that is great. So what this amendment is doing is that the committee had originally intended to stop at Jefferson Street, but we later decided to extend it into Germantown, Salem Town. I will say that the addition was without the knowledge of the district council member, by the way. But after we added it, we've had some Zoom meetings. I attended the Germantown neighborhood meeting yesterday, and the neighborhood association voted They are overwhelmingly support of the celebration from Jefferson downward. They are in celebration of doing whatever else needs to be done. Everybody agree this is a great thing. But based on the response that we've had, this amendment will now stop the name renaming at Jefferson Street and will not go into Germantown, Salemtown. And so with that, I move for approval of the amendment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Suarez. This is an amendment on BL 2024-50. It was properly moved. Is there any discussion about the amendment? Seeing nobody in the... Councilmember Withers, Councilmember Withers, your hand was up and then it went down.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just wanted to see if we could get confirmation from the district council member as to this, the amendment.
Councilmember O'Connell, I believe this is your district.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure I understand the question.
Councilmember Withers?
I wanted to make sure that the district council member agrees with the summary we got and is in support of the amendment. That's what the question. I'm so sorry.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I feel that the public community meetings, I have been able to follow the latest updates, and I think, generally want to have the most productive community conversation and also support the member and the minority caucus as well as the committee that's been working on this. I think the overall effort here to appropriately reflect a remarkable legacy, including very ties to Nashville for Congressman Lewis, we need to be a focus of this body and the city, and I'm eager to continue working on it. I think the amendment presents some of the, the need to keep the discussion community. We'll see what other work comes of this, but I'm overall in very strong support of the bill. I think we'll see what work comes out of it with the amendment applied.
Councilmember Withers?
Mr. Vice Mayor and to District 19 Councilmember O'Connell and Councilmember Suarez. I just appreciate all that. I know that have a stake in it or a say in it, and I want to make sure that he and his constituents that he represents and business owners and stakeholders, I just want to make sure that they're heard and that their voices are given first priority as we make this decision. But this sounds great. Thank you. Thank you to everyone involved.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Withers. Councilmember Hurt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, and I just want to thank the sponsor for the tremendous work that she has done and how she has brought this to the community and spoken with them and listened to the things that they had to say. There is a quote that says, "To fight and conquer in all our battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the resistance without fighting." And I believe that she has done that superbly, and I am very happy that we all can celebrate and honor this legend of a man and rename Fifth Avenue after Representative John R. Lewis in high fashion. And I just wanted to thank her and thank the Minority Caucus for the support that they've given her, all of the community leaders, and Councilman O'Connell.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Hurt. Anybody else in the queue? All right. Seeing none, we are on the amendment. We are voting on the amendment, which was properly seconded. All in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? The amendment passes 37 to 0 to 0. Councilmember Suara, you're now on your bill as amended on first reading. Need a motion to approve.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to move for the bill as approved as amended.
Okay, so this is BL 2020-450 as amended. Approval on first reading. The motion is to approve. Properly seconded. Councilmember Van Rees, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you so much. In the ongoing conversation, the members of the LGBTQ caucus will be hosting a conversation in regard to this at our meeting on Friday. Mr. Lewis co-sponsored more than a dozen bills through his career as a lawmaker to protect and advance the rights of LGBTQ people. Among those bills was the Equality Act, of which he was a lead sponsor. He meant a lot to our community as well, and we look forward to continuing the discussion with the Minority Caucus Chair and Ms. Laura on Friday. Thank you so much. We look forward to that discussion.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. We are on 2020-450 as amended on first reading. All those in favor of the bill, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Any abstentions? 37 to 0 to 0. BL 2020-450 as amended passes on first reading. I believe that takes care of all bills on first reading. We are now on bills on second reading. I'm going to go through. There is a consent calendar. I'm going to go through the bills on consent. Again, these are bills on second reading. Bill 2020-423 is on consent. 425 is on consent. 426, 427, 428, 429, 430, 431, 432, 433, and 434. Those are the bills on second reading on the consent calendar. Anything needs to be bumped? Seeing none, I'm going to read you the captions on bills on second reading on the consent calendar. BL 2020-423 by Suara and Henderson, ordinance to amend section 4.36.020 of the Metropolitan Code regarding suspension or debarment. BL 2020-425 by Councilmember Rosenberg, ordinance to amend chapter 16.24 of the Metropolitan Code to restrict the amount of fill material that can be placed upon property in close proximity to a river. 2020-426 by Councilmember Toombs, Sledge, Welsh, and others, ordinance establishing a program for the purpose of providing assistance to low-income elderly residents of the metropolitan government for the fiscal year 2020-2021. Bill 2020-427 by Roberts, Murphy, and Nash, ordinance authorizing the metropolitan government to abandon existing easement rights for five properties located at 4427 Michigan Avenue, a portion of formerly a portion of an unnumbered alley. Bill 2020-428, Toombs, Murphy, and Nash, ordinance authorizing the metropolitan government to negotiate and accept permanent and temporary easements for the 14th Avenue North Stormwater Improvement Project for 6 properties located on 14th Avenue North and Middle Street. BL 2020-429 by Benedict, Murphy, and Nash, ordinance authorizing the metropolitan government to negotiate and accept permanent and temporary easements for the Pennington Avenue Stormwater Improvement Project for 8 properties located on Pennington Avenue and Burn Street. BL 2020-430 by Councilmember O'Connell, Murphy, and Nash, ordinance authorizing the metropolitan government to abandon existing water main, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements to relocate existing water main and to accept new water main, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements for property located at 1419 Rosa L. Parks Boulevard. 2020-431 by Councilmembers Taylor, Murphy, and Nash, ordinance authorizing the metropolitan government to abandon existing public water mains and easements and to accept a new public water main, fire hydrants, and easements for property located at 640 21st Avenue North. Bill 2020-432 by Pulley, Murphy, and Nash, ordinance authorizing the metropolitan government to abandon existing water mains, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements and to accept new water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assemblies, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements property located at 1120 Glendale Lane. BL 2020-433 by Councilmembers Toombs, Murphy, and Nash, It's an ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept public sanitary sewer manholes and easements for 6 properties located on Youngs Lane and West Trinity Lane, also known as New Cumberland Townhomes, and BL 2020-434 by Council Members Benedict, Murphy, and Nash. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing sanitary sewer easement rights for property located at 4810 Gallatin Pike. Anything that needs to be bumped off the second reading consent calendar? Seeing none, I'm going to go to committee reports. Budget and Finance, Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to recommend approval for BL 2020-423 and 426, 12-4-0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Toombs. Councilmember Cash, Codes Fair and Farmers Market.
We voted to approve 2024-25, 8-0.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Murphy, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you. We voted 423 and 424 through 434, 16 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Murphy. Councilmember Nash, Public Works.
Public Works discussed 425, 427, 428, 429, 430, 431, 432, 433, and 434. Approved all. 10 in favor, 0 against.
All right, Councilmember Nash, can I get a motion to approve everything on the second reading consent agenda?
You can get that motion. I so move.
Thank you, Councilmember Nash. Councilmember Nash has moved approval of all the bills on second reading. Thank you. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the bills on second reading on the consent calendar? Seeing nobody's hands in the queue, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the bills on second reading consent agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Anybody need to abstain? Bill passes 37-0. All right, that's the second reading consent agenda. All right, so we go back and pick up the bills that were not on the consent agenda. Substitute Bill BL 2020-224 by Councilmember Taylor, Hauser, and others. Ordinance amending Chapter 11.22 of the Metropolitan Code to require landlords to provide notice to tenants prior to a sale of the property. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you. Committee reports.
Let's see. Refer to Planning and Zoning. Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized.
Thank you. We voted to defer this one meeting, 16 in favor, 0 against.
Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to move for approval for deferral, one meeting.
All right, so Councilmember Taylor has moved to defer 2020-224 one meeting, properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on the deferral motion of one meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Excuse me, Council. Vice Mayor.
Aye.
Hold on, hold on.
I apologize. And it has been requested from the Affordable Housing Committee for a re-referral as well.
All right, so we'll automatically refer it back to the Affordable Housing Committee.
They've already approved it, so it would be a new referral.
So it'll be a new referral because it's already approved it once. All right, so let's go back to the vote. It was a motion to defer one meeting, which was properly approved. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Bill is deferred. Substitute Bill BL 2020-224 is deferred one meeting. All right, we're on BL 2020-387 by Councilmember Hancock, Evans, O'Connell, and others. Ordinance amending Section 3.24.010 of the Metropolitan Code pertaining to health insurance benefits for members of the Metropolitan Council after they leave office. Councilmember Hancock, you're recognized. Councilmember Hancock, you are muted. There you go.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to move the amendment.
All right, so I'm going to go to Councilmember O'Connell because I believe it was Councilmember O'Connell's amendment. Councilmember O'Connell, you want to move your amendment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Vice Mayor, thank you. I would like to move the amendment with a brief comment.
All right, so Councilmember O'Connell has moved his amendment, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
Mr. President, this amendment, the timely filed one, is one that I believe many colleagues are aware of, which basically I recognize that so much of this discussion has centered on the notion of this bill applying to anybody who ran for office with an expectation, and my personal take is I did not want to support the bill if it was going to effectively pull the rug out from members who are already serving. So this basically would cause the effects of the bill to apply only to those members elected after a possible second term for anybody who's currently serving in their first term, effectively meaning no one who would be voting on it tonight could be affected by the impact of the bill.
All right, so you've heard an explanation of the amendment. It was properly seconded. Discussion on the amendment. Councilmember Hauser, you're recognized.
I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time or after we move on the amendment to bring up a question that I had and a comment. Should that come after we take care of the amendment, or?
Well, it depends on, is the question about the amendment or is it a question about the bill?
The bill.
Okay, so hold on. Let's get the amendment. Let's figure out how to deal with the amendment, then I'll come back to you on the bill. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, I've got Councilmember Parker. Is it on the amendment? Councilmember Parker.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm going to vote against this amendment. I think that the decision that we're faced with is a policy choice, and we should not exempt, us first-termers should not exempt ourselves from making that policy choice for ourselves. So I believe that if you think this is the right path to go, I'm not going to be supporting this amendment for that reason. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Parker. Looking to see who else is in the queue. Councilmember Rosenberg, you recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a question for Mr. Cooper. Without this amendment, how does this apply to council members in their second term, particularly ones who were elected in a runoff?
Mr. Cooper.
I'll have to pull the amendment up, but my recollection is that it just extends it out 4 years, and council members.
I'm sorry, without the amendment, Mr. Cooper.
Without the amendment, so council members, the charter provides that you, although the term starts September 1, you previous council members hold over until their successors are elected and qualified. So the interpretation has always been that even if you are elected with a runoff, that you were elected for that 4-year term that started September 1st. So that's the way it's always been applied in the past.
Councilmember Rosenberg.
So does that mean that before August 31st includes everybody who was elected in August or September of 2015?
Yes, everyone, that has always been the interpretation, that even though you may have served 3 years and 340 for 50 days, whatever it is, that's still a 4-year term, and 2 of those together make up the 8 years that qualifies you for the eligibility.
And those 8 years end before August 31st, 2023?
Under the way the bill is written now, or with the amendment, which?
I'm asking if the 8 years of service you just mentioned, that's 8 years as of August 30th, 2023?
With the amendment? I'm sorry, I'm trying
to completely independent of the bill. I'm asking whether 8 years beginning with the election of 2015 goes through August 30th of 2023, since the bill as written says it has to be 8 years of service before August 31st, 2023.
My interpretation is that it would. I mean, that's the language that has always been used in the in that code provision.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Just looking for clarification.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Rosenberg. Anybody?
Will we actually see savings in the trial?
Mr. Cooper?
Again, I'm still trying to find the amendment on my computer that is not working right. Do you have the page number of the amendment in the packet?
That's it.
I apologize, it's just not coming up here. Okay, you know what? This is the one that was actually emailed later that was inadvertently left out of the packet because it was a carryover. That's why I'm not finding it. So under the amendment, basically it just extends it out 4 years. So anyone that is serving now in this term, if they are elected again, then after the second term, they would still be eligible. So you would not start seeing any savings until after the end of the next council term.
Thank you, Director.
All right, we're still on Councilmember O'Connell's amendment. Councilmember Glover, you're recognized.
Okay, so Director Cooper, I just want to make sure I understand here. So we have a 34% property tax increase. This really won't save anything right now for the taxpayers of Nashville. And in fact, nobody on this council right now would be affected by this in any way whatsoever.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Cash, you're recognized.
I just want to thank the council member for sponsoring this amendment. I think his rationale for doing so is in the right place. However, I agree with Councilman Parker and will be voting no on the amendment.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Cash. Councilmember Hancock, you're recognized.
I just wanted to address the savings question that was asked.
Councilmember Hancock?
So if we had voted for this when it first came up in 2012, we would have now been saving $221,000 a year. If we would have voted for this in 2015 or 17, we would now be saving $425,000 a year. If we vote for this now, we won't be saving until the end of, with this amendment, until 2027. But then we'll be saving $700,000 a year. This is exponential.
Councilmember Van Rees, you're recognized.
Thank you. I've been giving this a lot of thought. I think all of us have, the last couple of weeks in particular. And the amendment allows us to kind of address the issue of people looking to serve and anticipating what the benefits package may or may not be. And I think that by supporting the amendment, you have an opportunity to be able to have plenty of time for people to understand that, and even for the next council that follows us, even half of you that are here now in your first term, to work with personnel even on whether or not a raise is needed or any sort of additional benefits or tweaking of it before 2027, and still be able to do that because it would not affect you I just think that gives appropriate room for good judgment, not only for us today, but also for those in 2023. I know that I am unlikely to support this bill without the amendment. And so the amendment, although I'm still thinking about it, the amendment does have my support, and I urge my colleagues to think on these things.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Van Rees. Councilmember Withers, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Mayor. I agree with everything that Councilmember Van Rees just stated, that having a little bit more time gives all of us an ability to make the best decisions that we can long term. I want to go on record and say that I appreciate the enthusiasm and the integrity of the sponsors of this bill, who are, I think, they're all first-term council members this time. I really appreciate their efforts to try to find savings at this time, particularly as it even would affect themselves. I think that's honorable and noble and praiseworthy. I think that's especially praiseworthy considering that these council members came into a first term. We experienced a tornado, a pandemic, a major budget issue, and now even more things. In particular, this is unsolicited praise, but I would really like to praise Councilmember Erin Evans for bringing this forward, because she dealt with the tornado significantly, as did others. But I think for Councilmember Erin Evans, just unsolicited praise. I just want to say I have so much respect for the integrity that you and others bring in bringing this legislation initially. I do agree with Councilmember Van Rees that this amendment is not necessarily self-serving, I think, for members who are currently in their first term, but it's a good idea to give more time to make a really competent decision long-term about what is the role of the Metro Council and what does it take to serve on the Metro Council today. So I'm in support of the amendment. I'm willing to support the amendment. However, when it comes to the bill as amended, my recommendation to the body as a past chair of the Personnel Committee would be perhaps to consider a deferral to track with the upcoming budget, so that as we've established, this will have very little effect on any of us, really, in any budgetary sense either. But perhaps members would consider at that time, once this amendment is added, a deferral to track it with the budget, so we do have about 9 months more time to think about it holistically, look at benefits, look at support staff that might be needed for council, other technology that might be needed, just any of those things. I think a more comprehensive view would work. But I do want to go on record as praising the sponsors who brought the legislation and expressing my support for Councilmember O'Connell's amendment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Withers. Councilmember Pulley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. There's been a lot of information swirling around about this, and I'm still hearing some things that I'm not sure that I'm very clear on, and I just want to make sure I have a really good understanding of all this, especially for the general public. It's my understanding that the bill as written will not impact
the 2023 term. The amendment extends that to October 1st to address the issue Councilman Rosenberg was talking about, 2027.
Okay. All right. So just to be clear, it doesn't affect us as we sit on this council. Should a first-term council member be reelected to a second term, if this amendment would have an impact on their ability to access these benefits. But as it sits right now, it doesn't affect this council per se. Secondly, if the amendment passes, I'm not really seeing where we would see a savings until 2031, because it really wouldn't, the savings wouldn't apply until those council members who were elected in 2023 and served a full 8 years would provide us any level of impact. Is that correct?
Mr. Cooper?
Yes, I think that's right. I mean, as far as ensuring that no one new takes advantage of it, that's correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, I appreciate that clarification, and so I'm going to stand in support of the amendment. I believe for many of the reasons that have already been spoken, and I appreciate Councilmember O'Connell for putting that forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Pulley. Councilmember Hart, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just wanted to also thank the sponsor for the amendment. The Minority Caucus met last night and had a spirited discussion in regards to this, knowing that the original sponsor's intent was to make sure that there was diversity on the council, making sure that it was diversity racially as well as socioeconomically, and making sure that there were quality individuals who had an opportunity to serve, and that the council should represent the city of Nashville and not just one group of individuals. And with this amendment, and actually we were hoping for some additional amendments to further support this effort. So I would be voting in favor of a deferral, and in order for there to be some more discussion and we walk away with a legislation that all of us could be proud of. So, and I really want to thank the Minority Caucus for the in-depth conversation that was engaged for us to come in and see things in a broader sense. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hart. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I am speaking in opposition to the amendment, even though I do sincerely appreciate the spirit within which it was offered, and the concerns around it. Colleagues, this has been advised for well over a decade now that this is something that we're having the wrong conversation sometimes. So, you know, we're discussing this because it's before us and it's important, but trying to work out benefits after the term to make up for the fact that we are not appropriately compensated, again, it's the wrong conversation. The same Deloitte study that recommended that this benefit be sunsetted also recommended that the council be paid more appropriately for the time that we work. You know, as a body, those are the things that we need to be doing from an educational perspective, talking about how this council works, the size of this council, term limits, and so forth. So, you know, in this moment, this is what's before us and what we can do, and I think we need to make sure that the positive impact comes as quickly as possible. But, you know, this isn't the kind of be-all to end-all on the ability to have a diverse body. What will get us to a diverse body is that this is a full-time professional position, as we all know that it is. And so I would encourage us not to spend all our kind of energy on this particular post-employment benefit. You know, again, I thank Councilor Hancock for bringing it. I thank Councilman O'Connell for the spirit of this amendment. But, you know, this just keeps compounding and compounding, colleagues. And I think if we get over this hurdle and address this, we have 3 more years in this term to really start to advance and educate the public about the importance of a full-time professional body.
So, Councilmember Henderson,
you know,
your time is up.
Yes, sir.
So.
Thank you, sir. So I do not support the amendment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Henderson. Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to ask Attorney Cooper if this has been before the Benefit Board and or why it wasn't referred to the Benefit Board. Typically, I know, like, when I was, you know, I have experience as being personnel chair as well last term, and when we went over the pay increase.
Point of order. This is not an amendment.
Actually, I would like to know why the amendment would have gone to the Benefit Board as well, I would assume. I'm just wondering about the process of how this tracked before us.
Mr. Cooper.
Legislation that put this into place going back to the 1980s or early 90s, it did not go to the Benefit Board, at least not that I could find. And since I've been here, attempts to modify it, and the times that it has been modified, hasn't gone to the Benefit Board. Since it's only applicable to council members and former council members and not to other Metro employees, it has not been considered by the Benefit Board.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Murphy. Councilmember Cash.
Previous question.
Councilmember Cash has called the previous question. We're on the amendment. Previous question. All those in favor of the previous question say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Previous question prevails. We are on Councilmember O'Connell's amendment to BL 2020-387. We're ready to vote. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Opposed, no.
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 All right, we're going to. So I've got a lot of hands on the board. If everybody will clear their machines, and if you're voting no, if you will put your hands up on the board, then I won't have to do a roll call. Okay. I believe the vote is in favor. But if you will clear your hands, and then if you want to vote no on the amendment, if you will put your hands up on the board. I'm going to call it the names. I make sure I've got this right. These are people who are voting no on the amendment. Okay. So I've got Councilmember Hauser voting no. Councilmember Rosenberg voting no. Councilmember Glover voting no. Councilmember Henderson voting no. Councilmember Cash voting no. Councilmember Benedict voting no. Councilmember Evans voting no. Councilmember Johnston voting no. Nash, Swope, Bradford, Parker. I think that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I've got 10 no's. Any abstentions, just to make sure I've got that?
Vice Mayor, I see 9 hands.
Okay, hands back up on the board. Now I see 11 hands. 1, 2, 3, 4.
11.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now I'm seeing more hands. 12. All right. So I've got Councilmember Hauser as a no, Councilmember Rosenberg as a no, Glover as a no, Henderson as a no, Cash as a no, Johnston no, Benedict no, Evans no, Nash no, Swope no, Bradford no, Parker no. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12. I had 12 no's. Okay. I want to make sure, any abstentions? If so, let me know. All right, so the amendment passes, and the vote would be 27 to 10. Amendment passes. I'm sorry. 25 to 12. Have that 10 from originally. 25 to 12. Amendment passes. We are now on Bill 2020-387 as amended. Back to you, Councilmember Hancock.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would also like to say thank you to my co-sponsor, Councilors Aaron Evans, Freddie O'Connell, Russ Bradford, John Rutherford, and Angie Henderson. I'd like to say a thank you additionally to the entire council for enabling me to bring this to the floor. This bill is not about access to health care. We will still move forward as is with current and former council members. This bill does not decide whether this is a full-time or a part-time job, and however you choose to serve, all future council members will still have full coverage while on the job. This bill is about fiscal responsibility. It saves money for the future, just as the rate voted in last term was not effective until this term. We must make decisions beyond today for tomorrow. We must replenish our reserves. We must address this $4.5 billion in debt. It is going to be a long road out. If we start making wise choices, we can, as Mayor Cooper said today, we can fix the problems. Don't compound them. The people ultimately have our back, and it is for them we serve. Let's make the right decision today, not for the 40 of us or the 40 to follow, but for the 700,000 taxpayers throughout Nashville. We got this, Nashville. And with this, I would like to yield my time to Councilman O'Connell.
Councilmember O'Connell, you got a minute, 32 seconds.
All right, I will try to be brief. So Bill 202387 as amended, as we have just clarified, does not impact currently serving members. This bill in no version of the draft ever had the effect of ending lifetime access to Metro managed insurance policies for council members. It does adjust the cost-benefit ratio that people pay. The bill impacts only future council classes, and what it does is adjust the subsidy paid by future former council members. To Councilmember Hurt's point, I do have what was a late filed amendment. I'm going to run it as a timely filed amendment. If this bill passes on second, we will consider that on meeting. That eases even in the transition for future council members so that it steps down from 75-25 Metro subsidy to 50-50 for 8 years, and then to finally the 2575 as proposed in this bill. I know that the principal argument against this bill is the impact on diversity, but in years of watching council races, I just find it hard to believe that Nashville is full of people who would gladly seek office if they got 75-25 taxpayer-funded premium subsidy, but not if they got only 8 years of a 50-50 subsidy and a 25-75 subsidy thereafter. I think we will continue to see a diverse council, and I know that taxpayers will appreciate our long-term fiscal responsibility.
All right, thank you, Councilmember O'Connell. So I'm going to go through the queue. I'm going to try to find people who haven't spoken yet. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I want to thank the sponsor for bringing this back. Since I've been on the council, this has come up 4 times, I think, and it's been a long and difficult discussion every time. I appreciate the fact that people have seen this as a way to increase diversity on the council. But I also appreciate Councilmember Hancock sending out data that we could actually look at to see who has taken advantage of it. And that list doesn't convince me that this actually has done anything to increase diversity. So as we've mentioned, there are certainly other things that we can undertake to continue to have a diverse council, but this has not proven itself to be one of those ways, and I think we owe it to the taxpayers to make this change. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The issue I continue to have with this bill is what the sponsor said it doesn't do. We're essentially making a choice about future benefits for unknown council members without really addressing the real issue, which is that this is a full-time job. And we keep not being honest with ourselves and, quite frankly, with our constituents if we call it anything but that. So the difficulty I have is that we're trying to separate a conversation that should be put together. We should be talking about what is a real salary and benefits package for a council member in Nashville in 2020 look like. And when I address this with my constituents, I put it just like that, to say I'd much rather see someone like the Civil Service Commission, Benefits Board, Study Formulating Committee, you name it, a resident constituent-led commissioner board really look at what this means. And I know that there's a consultant study out there from 5 or 6 years ago. Go look at the cities that are on that consultant study. From some of them, there were council members that made $2,000 a year. What we really need to have is an honest conversation about what it means to be a council member in Nashville of the 21st century. And to me, you cannot separate those conversations. You cannot decide that we're going to cut one piece off without addressing the entire piece of it, because it will impact who runs for office. Not that there's any sort of split on the insurance, but the fact that somebody's going to look at it and say, what am I going to have to give up? Or quite frankly, they're going to look at it and say, I can't even begin to try. So for that reason, I'd ask the sponsor to consider doing what others have asked and deferring this so that we can talk through this holistically, because yes, things need to change, but it all needs to change. It doesn't need to be piecemeal. We've already talked about how this bill isn't going to change things immediately. We have time to talk this over. We should be taking that time to talk it over. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Sledge. Councilmember Rutherford.
Thank you, Mr. President. This may be about healthcare benefits, but it's not a healthcare issue. It's about sound fiscal policy, and it's a right and wrong issue. For a council member to receive a benefit that no other employee of Metro government receives, or to receive it in a manner in which others do not receive it, or that takes a full career of service to attain, puts council members in a special class. From public response to this bill that we've all been seeing, those we represent clearly do not appreciate our special class status, and they rightfully are expecting us to do something about it. I keep hearing about this being a drop in the bucket, but excess is excess, no matter how big or small that it might be. I also keep hearing about how this will not save us any money for several years to come. which is true, but shouldn't we care about future budgets and future spending? I, for one, care about more than just the here and now, and I believe the sentiment of our constituents is the same. So, Mr. President, I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rutherford. Councilmember Hauser.
Thank you. I think there are several things we need to look at, and I agree very much with what Councilmember Sledge has proposed in this. We have not had the proper people even looking at this bill. I feel that there's this good intention, but by the way we've gone about it, we haven't really had the Employee Benefits Board or the Metro HR even look at this. And there's been so much disinformation, which really makes me angry. To call it a lifetime benefit, it's not a lifetime benefit. And I can speak from this because I collect Medicare. I'm ineligible for this insurance no matter what I wanted to pay for it. So to call it a lifetime benefit is not correct, because once a person gets to 65 and they're eligible for Medicare, this insurance doesn't apply. You can pay for it, but you're not going to get anything out of it. So basically be making a donation. So calling it a lifetime benefit is incorrect. The fact that we have just passed an amendment that nobody on the council today would be impacted by it speaks to the fact that this is not a good bill. It's not been written properly. We need to defer the bill. We need to have Metro HR and the Benefits Board look at it. This needs to really be analyzed and then come up with a plan that is equitable, because the way it is written, it's not. And I know there was good intention by it, but there's been so much misinformation by the hundreds of emails we got talking about the lifetime benefit or how unfair this is. Obviously, these folks have not been provided the correct information, and I feel that that angers me so much when disinformation is put out, and I feel that our constituents are intelligent enough to hear the real information. When I first brought up the idea about how inaccurate the lifetime benefit statement was, I was told that the constituents just wouldn't understand. I think our constituents understand. Age 65, you get Medicare. You do not get this insurance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hauser. Councilmember Vercher. Councilmember Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you, Councilwoman Hauser, for bringing that up. So I'm not going to stress that point as it relates to the Medicare, but thank you for bringing that, because I was going to include that in my talking points also. So it's been mentioned that this is about fiscal responsibility, Vice Mayor, and we are partly in the situation that we're in because we've been taking these penny and nickel approaches to the budget. I agree with my other colleagues that we need to do a comprehensive review as it relates to the benefits of this body. That study was a skewed study. It compared our body to other areas where they receive a much higher salary, where they receive a travel stipend, they receive reimbursements for their meals, they have staff, they have pensions. So along with Councilwoman Hauser, part of my frustration is that our community, they've been stirred up as it relates to this. And we haven't done our own due diligence on our side. No one even mentioned about the Medicare. No one even mentioned about the disparity between us being compared to other governments and their benefits. To Councilman Sledge's point, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. Let's put our best effort forward, and let's stop exploiting the emotions of people in the city. We know that this is a hot topic. This is a hot topic, and for it to be for us to be painted as just some of the emails that we receive. And we just got to do better, Vice Mayor. This has been more than time consuming. A lot of our colleagues have had their feelings hurt. They've received communications with being called various things. And I know that may not have been the intent of the sponsors, but nevertheless, that was the outcome. I would implore the sponsor to defer this, and I recommend, Vice Mayor, that you appoint a special committee to evaluate the benefits. If we're going to couch this and say it's a fiscal policy, we need to evaluate those council members that's going to be rolling off as it relates to Medicare. We need to evaluate cutting down our health care costs as it relates to council members and Metro employees utilizing General Hospital. We have a benefit there that a lot of employees that don't use that would help drive down our costs.
So, Councilmember Vercher,
that's millions and millions of savings, Vice Mayor.
All right. Defer. We heard discussions about a deferral motion, but we never heard a motion to defer. Councilmember Withers, just checking.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. That's accurate. You captured that accurately. What I stated during the discussion on Councilmember O'Connell's amendment was that I was supportive of the amendment, but that once the amendment is applied, I would sort of recommend a deferral of the whole bill as amended, in order that we could perhaps take this back up during the next budget. That would give us several months' time. We could run through boards and commissions as appropriate. I think a special committee is a fantastic idea. So I support that, and I raise that as a possibility or a suggestion during my discussion on the amendment. But if it pleases you, I could make that motion now.
Well, so Councilmember Withers, it doesn't whether you please me or not. We were just checking. So I really didn't call on you for a motion to defer. I was checking on Councilmember Hurt's point of order, so I'd have to come back to you. Okay.
I thought we were on the discussion of the deferral.
No. So Councilmember Vercher,
Can you clarify, Vice Mayor, what the motion is on the floor?
The motion is to pass BL 2020-387 as amended on second reading. There is no deferral motion. There is no deferral motion in front of us.
I thought I seconded a deferral.
No, Councilmember Hurt, I understand the concern, but Councilmember Withers never moved for a deferral. And so there was no second, so there is no motion to defer before us at this moment. We are on the bill.
Can I make the motion to defer?
Oh, wait a minute. So people can't just start asking questions. It is simply a Bill 2020-387 as amended is before us right now for approval on second reading. That's what we're voting on. There is no deferral motion before us at this time. Okay, so I need to go back to the queue. So Councilmember Young, you're next.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I kind of almost feel like I guess respectfully, if I could have Attorney Cooper refresh my memory, there's been a lot of talk about the finances of this. However, it has been talk about our debt and whatnot, but just how many dollars would passing this, how many dollars would that trim off of Nashville debt, Mr. Cooper?
I believe the current amount for former council members, I think, is currently about
vote in support of this bill. However, I've been extremely disappointed with a lot of the rhetoric that has surrounded it, because it's been very disingenuous to the residents of our county, and I think that's been wildly shown to us in the emails and calls and television stories on a particular TV station with a purported journalist, though he named me but never reached out to me for comments. That particular commentator has really, along with everyone that's reached out to us, been talking a lot about a free lifetime benefit for our debt. When this does nothing about our debt, it's not a free lifetime benefit. However, I do think it is astounding to me that myself, for example, if I am elected to a second term and finish it, I would be eligible to be on Metro's insurance until I'm 65. Well, if I'm reelected, I'll be 35 when I get off the council. Why should the taxpayers in Nashville subsidize my health insurance for 30 years after my service to this county? I think if we want to have integrity or a leg to stand on when we talk about the fiscal shape our county is, I think this is a way forward to do that. I guess I know there's a lot of emotion around this, and I don't quite understand it. And if someone's going to try to defer this, I'm really against that, because everyone on this council right now knows how they're going to vote, and deferring it does not change any mind. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
All right, thank you. Council member, excuse me. So someone was out of order. So we have warned people about speaking out of turn and speaking inappropriately on the floor. So I would strongly recommend that people do not do that anymore. Okay? I know that we're in a major discussion, but appropriate conduct is required on the council floor. Councilmember Stiles, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm due for a deferral.
Oh, okay, so hold on. I'm trying to hear what you said. Did you move for deferral?
I did.
Okay. So,
sorry, could you not hear me? My apologies.
All right. So, Councilmember, hold on. Councilmember Stiles has moved for deferral, and I think I heard a second. So, Councilmember Stiles, I'm going to come back to you for an explanation of the deferral, and then we will have a discussion on the deferral. You need to tell me for how long. Councilmember Stiles?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. To Councilmember Withers' point, I think we need a significant amount of time to look at the benefits to understanding all of this. I think we've heard a lot of confusion tonight. We've heard multiple points about misinformation. We have people in support, people that are not in support, and I don't think any of us have all of the facts. We need time to understand every nook and cranny of this. And to Councilmember Withers' point, if we can do this, if we can defer this for several months until we can do this along with the budget, I think that is the wisest idea. So that is my suggestion, that we defer this. And so time-wise, yeah, at least for me, can we take this deferral at least until March?
So, Councilmember Stiles, I need a definite date for a deferral. So you want to move a motion for a deferral until March? Is that what you said?
Yes,
you just have to say either the first or second meeting in March, if that's what you want.
I'll take the first, please.
The first meeting in
March.
Motion for a deferral to the first meeting in March.
Second.
And I hear a second. Okay. So the motion before you is a deferral motion until the first meeting in March. It was properly seconded. So I've got a number of people still in the queue, but you're now on a motion to defer. Okay? So if you've got your hand raised to talk about the bill as amended, we're now on a deferral motion until the first meeting in March. Discussion on the deferral motion. So I'm trying to pick up people who have not spoken yet. Councilmember Evans, on the motion to defer or on the bill?
I'd like to speak on the bill, please.
Okay. Councilmember Lee, on the bill or on the deferral motion?
On the deferral motion.
Okay. Councilmember Lee, you're recognized.
I agree with the deferral motion. We have been getting lots of misinformation. I think we need some time to get the correct information out there so that constituents will know when they're writing the letters to us with all of the information incorrect, what is really going on. And so I just think that we, not only us, but for our constituents too, we kind of owe them the right information out there, give them some time to get all of that together before we rush into something that people are giving information that is not correct. So I agree with the deferral.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Lee. Councilmember Swope.
Previous question.
All right. So Councilmember Swope has called the previous question on the deferral motion. All right. All those in favor of the previous question, we're not voting on the deferral motion, just the previous question. All those in favor of the previous question say aye. Opposed, no?
No.
No. All right, so I can't tell. So I believe we're going to have a roll call. So Sean, I think you're going to handle the roll call for the clerk. Okay. So this is just on the previous question. All right. Correct? Correct. So we're not voting on an amendment. We're not voting on a deferral motion. We're voting on whether you're ready to vote on the deferral motion. All right. So Sean, if you don't mind, if you would call the roll.